For more on the restaurant industry, CGTN's Rachelle Akuffo spoke to Shelly Whitehead, editor at QSRweb.com and at pizzamarketplace.com. Rachelle began by asking what the most effective measures have been for restaurants to remain open during the pandemic.
Fast food, QSR is quick service restaurant, and pizza concepts. And a lot of these brands are doing pretty well because they've got drive-throughs, they've got contactless experiences, but those who don't have really flexed and adapted very quickly to get their tech up to speed so that they could enable that contactless experience that customers just demand and the situation demands, frankly. So as far as things that they're doing, they are adapting technology that will enable that the best. I'm thinking about a brand in Stockholm, Sweden called the Sushi Shop. And they're a very small concept and they can't pack a lot of people in, which is a problem right now. So they kind of innovated with their technology providers and came up with this experience of a kiosk through the window where their customers stand on the outside. They don't have to smoosh together inside the tiny shop, and they can order through the window of the shop in order to receive their food. That's just one experience. The other thing is, casual dining brands and fine dining brands have been taxed so much. And I'm thinking of a concept called Smoky Bones, and they've spun off a couple of ghost kitchens that kind of capitalize on their burgers and their wings. And they've been able to really stimulate some business that way.
And we've even seen some companies that perhaps are specialized in meat, sort of just selling the cuts of meat or selling the sauce and some of these other side things. So it is good to see at least some opportunities coming out of what is clearly a very tough situation. Has this crisis perhaps created any new opportunities for some of these new chains to restructure, some of these larger chain restaurants?
To restructure, they've done that in a kind of variety of ways. I'm thinking of chains like there's a concept down south called Fria's Gourmet Pops, and they built their entire strategy around a fixed location store, but now they've shifted and they're moving it all mobile. So they're in food trucks, they're in trucks selling at what other venues they can go to and find the customers, and they're having a great deal of success with that. So those are the kinds of concepts and ingenuity that's driving the change to adapt to the situation.
Now, obviously, on top of the pandemic and the closures, we now also have winter coming for most of the world. How are some of these restaurants really coping with this if, say, they don't have outdoor seating, or if they only have very limited sort of modified outdoor seating?
You've probably seen this, like I have. A lot of restaurants are moving into their parking lots and their frontage with large tents that they're covering a lot of diners with so they can space them properly. And they're also putting, of course, these heaters, these outdoor heaters, patios, they're adapting in that respect as well. They're doing just about anything that they can to capture the customer where they are. And that also includes things like catering to that home customer with meal kits you can make at home, party kits, family-sized meals that people can order in. So we'll bring the business to you.
Certainly smart. I mean, but we're seeing some incredible losses here. I mean, we saw an estimate from the National Restaurant Association saying the industry had already lost $120 billion and could lose as much as $240 billion by year's end. And that was even before the June surge, and then there's now resurgence that we're seeing in the US as well. What's the likelihood of getting some help from Congress or local governments by year's end?
I will just speak personally. And that is, my sense is there's not going to be federal help coming before year's end. It's just, it doesn't seem feasible with the political situation that we kind of have right now. So I think you're going to see more and more grassroots efforts with communities coming together and showing their support for restaurants because let's face it, we love them. We all love them. And I'm seeing a lot more community-based support for, trying to drive people to order, to do what they can to keep these businesses alive until we get to the other side.
Now, unfortunately, I did see that on Yelp, according to Yelp, they said that since March, 53% of the restaurants listed on that platform are now listed as permanently closed. We saw OpenTable said 1 in 4 were at risk of closure. What do you foresee the industry looking like then post-COVID?
Well, naturally, so much smaller, sadly. I think the latest I heard was 100,000 restaurants of the 600,000 plus in the country closed temporarily or permanently by year's end, because I don't think the restaurateurs themselves are quite sure what's going to happen yet as they kind of muddle through this. But it's going to be a much smaller industry. I think it's going to be an industry that is much more populated by quick service and limited service concepts, just because this has been so brutal for casual and fine dining.